Let's talk about Superman. As an entry to this new iteration of the DC Cinematic Universe, I think that Superman provides an energizing introduction to Superman as a character while also hinting at what the DCU can become through the years. I really appreciated how Superman was portrayed in this movie. This is a Superman that is human and he strives for the kindness of humanity. This is a Superman that radiates hope and compassion through both of his actions and his words to inspire others to be good. And I think the visuals of this movie further encapsulates this because they were bright and they were colorful and it was just vibrant. It just really helped capture the tone of hope that sticks throughout the entire movie. I also found myself fully entertained while watching every fight scene. The fight scenes were all uniquely choreographed and it just made them intriguing to watch. And I think they did an exceptional job with flight combat in this. It's not just always close-up shots on the characters with janky cuts when people are fighting. We do get some longer fight sequences and get to see the fight actually unfold. Now, this movie tackles a lot of story beats, and for me, I just described the story as concise. It explores the story beats quickly, but it explores them thoroughly also. Because there is time in this movie where it felt like Superman sort of went out of focus and went into the back, but I think that that time was spent well since it focused on some of the other characters and some of the other storylines, like with Lois and the other heroes. I think it's just ultimately up to each person on whether or not it's too much story or just enough. And the humor in this movie is about what you'd expect from a James Gunn movie, as there are moments where emotion will be cut off by a joke, but I found it more as keeping the tone positive and hopeful rather than intruding, because those emotional moments still resonate, and that's just the style of James Gunn. It's the same thing when you can tell the movie is made by Tarantino or Christopher Nolan or just any other director. And while I personally don't enjoy this style of emotional storytelling, I can understand why you'd want a hopeful Superman movie to not be bogged down by heavy psychological sadness and pain and stuff. And also, with this being a James Gunn movie, you would already know that the music would be a focal point, and I thought that the music in this was stellar. The music really melds the movie together to capture whatever atmospheric tone is needed, whether it be epic or melancholy or inspiring. Both of the original music and the licensed music felt like it fit the mood and the tone of this movie. The music felt so strong that at multiple points in this movie, the music alone got me teary-eyed sometimes, and sometimes it wasn't even from what was happening on screen. I mean, I've never even seen the original Superman movies of the past, but it just sort of gave me a sense of nostalgia, even though I don't really have that for Superman. All of the performances in this movie were also top-notch. I think that everybody from the main cast to the extras in the background, there was not a single weak link in this cast. But to speak on the three big performances, I think that David Cornsweet captures the boldness and the bravery of Superman. And I really thought that Rachel Brosnahan really brought out the headstrong and the intelligence of Lois Lane. And I really liked Nicholas Holt's portrayal of Lex Luthor because he really becomes a vindictive and a calculated Lex, and it just made him really feel threatening throughout the entire movie. I'd also like to say that I really felt the chemistry between Superman and Lois because it doesn't feel fabricated like how relationships can feel in a lot of movies and TV. And I think it's because there are so many moments and conversations that Superman and Lois have throughout the movie to really just help build the relationship to make it feel realistic. And that's just props to David and Rachel, who really makes the relationship feel authentic. So I would definitely recommend watching Superman because after watching this movie, I just couldn't help but feel good. And now I will be moving on to the spoiler section, so if you have not seen or do not want to hear spoilers for Superman, this is your heads up. Let's just start right at the beginning, where I really like how the movie starts with an opening text because it sort of feels like a comic book opening where we sort of just get dropped into an established world and there are things and conflicts that we don't fully know or understand yet. And I just really like the whole beginning sequence where after being healed in the Fortress of Solitude, we just get an immediate flying scene where it's just him looking really cool flying past like snowy mountains and stuff. And then it goes on to focusing on Superman Superman before moving to a focus on his symbol of hope and into the title card, and it just immediately got me hyped up and it just gave me chills right away. And like I said, I thought that David Cornsweet did a great job as Superman, but I think he also did a good job as Clark Kent, because even though we didn't get much of Clark Kent, I really liked what we saw from it, and I think that David actually pulls off the double persona, I mean, as much as you can by just adding glasses. But I like that they sort of explained why the glasses actually work, because later on in the movie Green Lantern, he says that the glasses actually like messes with people's minds to sort of convince them that it is somebody else. So I don't know if it's just like a Superman thing where if he puts something on his face that he looks different, or maybe like his parents sent him with some special glasses to sort of help him hide his identity. But I don't really think it's supposed to be that deep. I think it's just a gimmick of Superman. But as Clark, there is a moment that I just found really funny, and it's during Lois and Superman when they have the interview, and then Superman is just like, hey, where's the button on this recorder? And I just found it as a very subtle, funny moment, but I also found it as a character moment for Superman, because it sort of shows that he doesn't really do journaling and reporting that much, because he just interviews himself and he just types up what he's thinking. And to speak on Lois a little bit, I just really like seeing how Lois is just a hard-headed reporter and she's just not afraid to find the truth. And I also like what Lois's part to play in the third act is, because her story with Jimmy Olsen and some people from the Daily Planet, they basically just saved Superman's reputation by just exposing Lex Luthor. So I just found it very fitting how the press with Lois and the Daily Planet were able to sort of save Superman's name and image by just exposing the truth. And I'm just glad that Lois actually had something to do with the story and to help Superman. And I really found Superman and Lois's relationship very interesting, because when we see them together for the first time, which is during that interview scene, we see that their relationship is really just on the edge, and Superman doesn't really know what to do or how to handle situations like that, because I mean, after the argument, Superman just leaves without resolving anything, and then Lois just looks back in disbelief like, did Superman really just do that? And this shows that Superman does have flaws, especially to Lois, because after talking to Superman during the Rainbow Squid fight and when she arrives at the Kent's farmhouse, she realizes that Superman is also Clark Kent, and he's human and he's been raised by the tenderness of humans. So in this movie, Superman gets beaten down a lot, and I think that's okay, because this is a Superman that is naive and cocky, but he's still learning. And a moment where it is sort of shown that Superman is still learning and growing is when Superman is able to blow air strong enough to push him, Metamorpho, Crypto, and the baby away from a black hole, because afterwards Superman sort of massages his mouth due to just his inexperience with using that much power. So this just shows that this is gonna be the weakest Superman that we will get probably, so he only has more room to grow. And I think starting at what feels like an underpowered Superman was a good choice, because if Superman was to already be able to defeat enemies quickly or alone, there would be nowhere else really for him to go. So Superman will get stronger and become that overpowered hero that we know. It just is gonna take time to develop. And I really want to praise how Superman was constantly saving people throughout the entire movie. It wasn't just one scene of the hero saving people. The entire movie, Superman is saving people, whether it was just one person at the wrong spot at the wrong time, or if it was a building full of tired workers, or a squirrel on a street, or even just a kaiju monster. It doesn't matter to him. To Superman, all life is precious. I really liked what they did with Crypto in this movie as well, because he sort of became like Superman's sidekick, and I'm not sure how strong Crypto is supposed to be in the comics and everything, but I found it very entertaining how Crypto is just a dog that can fly and he can take hits. And I like how they built up Crypto's significance in the last battle against Ultraman, where before he was destroying Mr. Terrific's T-spheres, and then at the end he was destroying Lex's cameras, because I was wondering how Lex was getting those camera angles of Ultraman every time he was fighting Superman, and it just all made sense in the end. Also, having Superman be looking over Crypto for his cousin, who is Supergirl, also just makes it make sense as to why he fights so hard for a dog that isn't good, because it's not his, it's his cousin's, and he was responsible for it. Now, this movie includes a variety of characters and heroes that I unexpectedly found myself latching on on to, because I thought that all these other heroes were amazing and they were interesting, and even though they didn't get too much development, I thought that what they had was very, very well done. And the first on the list is this guy, Mr. Terrific, and this dude was just a scene stealer, and he felt very important to this movie as well. He just seemed like a very smart and straightforward and, I mean, sort of petty dude. And he has one of the best fight scenes in this movie where it's at the beach portal, and it's just, it felt very Guardians of the Galaxy-esque, where he's just fighting around, he's got the bubble to protect Lois, and he's just literally messing around with all these dudes. He's like pulling a 6-shooter like he's in the Wild West or something, and he just has that silent smugness when he fights, and it just really made me enjoy watching him fight. And the next person to talk about is Green Lantern, or Guy Gardner, who was also great in this, even though he didn't really get as much time as Mr. Terrific. But again, he's just a cocky and boastful hero that he knows what he's doing is good, and he wants everybody else to know that he's doing a good thing. But I mean, seeing Green Lantern powers was also very cool to see, because I don't think I've ever seen Green Lantern powers in a live action, and I thought that it was done very well here, because when they're fighting that kaiju monster and he sees that the kaiju monster can spit fire and it can bite things, he puts a mask around it so it stops it from doing that, and I just thought the Green Lantern powers here were done very cool. And the last one to talk about that finishes off the Justice Gang is Hawkgirl, and honestly, she feels underdeveloped when you compare her alongside Green Lantern and Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho, because she doesn't really have a character moment where we learn about her and what and why she does what she does, because at the end of this movie, she makes a big decision by killing the president of Baravia, and it's just, I'm not really sure why she killed him. I mean, obviously he's a bad guy and he's done bad things, but that's a big decision, and I'm just wondering if it will have consequences or anything later on. And it just sucks that we don't really get much of Hawkgirl in this movie, because in Black Adam, there's a character called Hawkman, and I can only guess that Hawkman and Hawkgirl might be sort of related or have the same powers or something, but alongside with Dr. Fate in that movie, they were the bright spots of that movie, and Hawkman was just very strong at fighting. I remember he had like a mace that was super strong, but Hawkgirl in this just feels sort of weak, so I'm not sure if there's gonna be like an arc happening there. Hopefully there is, but yeah, I just really hope that we see more of Hawkgirl. So those three characters, Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, and Hawkgirl, make up the Justice Gang, who I thought were just, they were amazing in this movie, and they were just really cool side characters to have. And with the Justice Gang, it really adds a contrast between Superman and any other good heroes that we see, because the people in Justice Gang, they do good things, but they eliminate threats by just any means necessary. Meanwhile, Superman actually takes their life into consideration, and it just shows how Superman takes that extra good step to preserve life and preserve others. I also really like that Superman gets the help of the Justice Gang during the final act, because I like the fact that Superman can't be in two places at once, because I think that it would have been silly to have Superman be able to help those people in Jahanpur while he's in the middle of a fight with Lex. And if the Justice Gang never went to go help the people in Jahanpur, we would have never gotten one of the funniest character moments for me when Green Lantern's attacks there are just middle fingers through the ground and just destroying all the people in the vehicles. But there's also one more dude that gets added to the Justice Gang in the end, and his name is Metamorpho, and I really like Metamorpho because he seems like an actual just good guy with a strong power. He also just became a character that I really wanted to see more from, because like I said, I really think that he has a cool power being able to shape elements and materials and make stuff, because when I first saw him, I thought that he'd sort of be a stoic throwaway character just by the way he was sitting in the cube with his head down, but after seeing him interact with Superman, I really grew to just like him as an awkward, soft-spoken, and intelligent dude. And knowing that Metamorpho has a son that he cares for and he loves, and also seeing how he reacted to the death of Ali, the street vendor, it just showed that Metamorpho has a good moral compass on his head. Also, another great scene was just seeing Metamorpho make a sun substitute to heal Superman, because that was just a huge character moment to showcase his power and his personality and everything. But even though I'm saying all this, I do worry about Metamorpho's future, because I know nothing about Metamorpho, so I might be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure Lex or someone else said that there's no more kryptonite on Earth, so maybe kryptonite will be found somewhere else in the universe or in a different dimension and be brought in. But I think that Metamorpho, he might be used to become kryptonite again, and then a villain later on will cut off his arm or something, and then that's how they get kryptonite in this world. I'm not really sure. That's just a guess by me, but I was just really surprised that he could actually make kryptonite with his body. So I hope he'll be okay, but then again, if my theory's right, I worry for his future. And the last character I want to talk about is the villain, which is Lex Luthor, because I thought that he was very good, but he didn't really feel fleshed out enough, at least to my liking, because as someone who's never seen Lex Luthor before, I just would have liked to explore more of Lex's reasoning as to why and how he does what he does in this movie, because I'm just wondering, like, how is he so smart, and is he the first to have a pocket dimension? Is he the first to clone someone, let alone clone a metahuman? There's just so many questions that I have about how he's able to do all this, and from what I understand, I think Lex hates Superman because he believes that Superman is what humans can't be, so he just sort of has like a cynical approach to humans, and maybe that's why Lex just doesn't seem to meld well with humans, because it seems like Lex just has maybe like a long backlog of girlfriends that have just not been to his liking, that he just keeps locked up, and then he also just treats all of his workers at Luthor Corp like crap, except for his two grunts. So I don't know. And also, why was one of Lex's bases just on an open beach? I mean, was it just the coordinates of the portal and they just had to like build around it where it was placed, or did they place it there as a good starting point to fully destroy the city of Metropolis like they planned? I don't know. It's just I really like Nicholas Hoult as Lex. I thought that he had a very interesting take and a very good take on Lex, so I just wish that we got to explore more of him, and maybe we will, because it seems like Lex maybe just got taken to prison or something, so maybe we'll see him in another Superman movie or in another superhero movie, so I'm just hoping we get to see more. And to sort of talk about Lex's grunts or the side villains, there isn't really much for me to say. So there's first off the engineer, and I thought that she had great moments and great fighting moments and stuff like that. I really like the scene where she just sort of turned into like a net runner and goes to hack the technology in the Fortress of Solitude, and it seems like engineer is very, very powerful, because it seems like she was gonna be able to kill Superman. So I don't know if that's legit or not, but if she can actually do that, she is a real threat. And also, Lex says that she can turn herself into anything, but I don't think we really get to see that. She sort of just reverses herself backwards. She uses her saw blades. She has like a jetpack and like maybe like a jet gun, it seems like. Oh, and I also like that Engineer and Ultraman, I like how they just had like a Marvel Rivals team up during the football field fight, and they just comboed against Superman. But yeah, I don't really have much more to say on Engineer. I thought that she had some cool villain moments and a cool power, so that's really it. And then to talk about Ultraman, honestly, I didn't really care for him. I mean, I really liked how Lex was just sort of controlling Ultraman like a fighting game, and I thought that just sort of showed Lex's smarts and just how devoted he was to taking down Superman and everything. And I honestly didn't expect the reveal of Ultraman being a Superman clone coming, because Ultraman just sort of feels like a prototype villain, because I think Superman fighting another Superman is supposed to be like a huge battle, because like in Man of Steel, when Superman is fighting Zod, that is like a huge moment. So hopefully sometime down the line we'll still get that moment of Superman fighting another Superman. And another thing I'd like to talk about is the huge twist that happens in this movie about Superman's parents, because I'm still not sure if the parents' message is true, as in they're telling Superman to actually go to Earth to like repopulate and take over, because Mr. Terrific says that if the professionals or the linguistics or whoever, if they say that it's real, then it's real. But I mean, maybe something could have changed the message, or maybe Lex could have changed it, or even Engineer by her hacking it could have just modified something that was wrong. And I'm also just like, how are these humans, I'm guessing, how are they translating like the language of Superman? Because it seems like they got the first part of the message translated right, so I'm not really sure how that works. But whether the message is true or not, I think that it works either way, because if it's true and his parents really did tell him to take over and all that stuff, then Dad Ken's speech about parents giving their children tools to make their own decisions, that stays a strong message, because even when you're bestowed a purpose or told what to do by those who raised against you, you are ultimately the one who decides what choices you make. And Superman does good and helps people because he wants to, not because somebody tells him to. And if the message is fake, then that's just another storyline that we can explore in another movie, whether Lex sabotaged the message or the humans were misinterpreting it or any other factors. And the last things that I want to talk about is just some of the visuals and just the music. So I just thought that this movie was shot very well. There was so many amazing shots and the cinematography was just incredible in this, and I just thought that the movie just looked very, very polished and looks very good. And there's one specific scene that just sticks in my head, and it's in the third act when Superman stops a building from falling onto a woman in her car, and as she's driving away, she has tears in her eyes and she looks back and she sees Superman coming out of the rubble, and just as a symbol of hope, he is there. It was just so powerful to see that moment. And now to talk about the music, because like I said, it's just something about this music that just hit a part of my soul where it just got me emotional, and I don't know why. There's something about the music that just makes the moments feel fantastical, and like I said, it just gives a sense of nostalgia for some reason. And I think it's just because the main track is just so amazing, and I know that it's a play on the John Williams Superman theme, but I think that the Superman theme here, when it's redone, it just feels grand and theatrical. And some scenes where the music just got me was when Superman was blowing away from the black hole. The music when Superman and Lois are together, every time that hits, it just feels like a special moment. The epic fight music when it's Superman versus Superman, that was awesome. And then obviously one of the best scenes in the movie when Dad Kent and Clark Kent are sitting on the porch with the rising sun and the music is just playing in the back, and it's just such a beautiful moment. And one last song is at the end of the third act, where it's after the aftermath of everything, of all the fighting, and we're just on the street and we see just all the citizens of Metropolis just sort of reveling in what has happened, and then we just hear a guitar just hit the music, and man, I don't know what it is, but when that guitar hits at the aftermath, it just felt like the end of a grueling battle where you've won, but at such a high cost, and that track just fits so well at the end of a battle. And after the end of the movie, there are end credits, and I don't know, it just felt so refreshing to have end credits where it just includes little character moments and it's not just teasing the next big thing. And I sort of like that we don't really know what's gonna be happening next because we've dealt with the problem in this story. So what I found myself taking away from this Superman movie was the reason why Superman is so influential is because Superman has the capability to inspire the goodness and the kindness out of people. That no matter how dark or grim things look, hope provides people with the ability to keep moving forward. But in a less serious way, this movie just really reminded me of why I enjoy watching superhero movies. They are made to entertain, to teach, and to inspire. So yeah, those were some of my thoughts on Superman, and this was just a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed and I was fully entertained, and it just really brought me back into the universe of superheroes and how superheroes can be fun and they can be hopeful and they can motivate you to just be better. So feel free to talk about this movie in the comments below. I would love to discuss anything about this movie with all of you, whether it be things you liked or things you didn't like, or even just theories you have for what's coming next. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good rest of your day.